never lied to you. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide.
Unconfirmed reports reaching Georgetown say there have been mass suicides at the Jonestown settlement.
909 men, women, and children lie dead. Almost all by self-administered poison. It appears an incomprehensible act. On November the 17th, 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan arrives at a small airstrip near the commune known as Jonestown. It's home to nearly 1,000 Americans. A television crew for NBC News is accompanying him. He's here to investigate claims that People's Temple followers are being held against their will. With him is his aide, Jackie Spear. In a rare television interview, she recalls the events of that night.
They're putting on a show. There's music and singing going on. They're showing us how happy they are.
I've never been so totally happy or fulfilled in my life.
It's fun over here. It's really good.
It's the most beautiful place I've ever been in all my life.
It was pretty impressive.
I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about your operation here. But I can tell you right now that there's some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened to them in their whole life.
One of the People's Temple congregation, Vernon Gosney, approaches NBC reporter Don Harris. He's carrying a hastily scribbled note.
I passed the note to Don Harris, who was a reporter. I tried to slip it into the crease of his arm that was folded, and he dropped it. I did not feel secure at that moment. I did not know what would happen to me.
The way the children are behaving.
Yeah. Well, they seem happy, and that's surely.
Don. It appears it's not one big happy family after all. Here.
And my heart sunk, because what we had feared was true.
Vernon Gosney is desperate to leave Jonestown to return to the U.S. The note is asking the congressman for help. The following morning, Jackie Spear and journalists that have traveled with the congressman interview People's Temple followers. Tim Reiterman writes for the San Francisco Chronicle.
The key question for us all was whether people were free to leave or not.
Have you spoken to him? No, I haven't.
But they would not provide any feeling outside of saying that they were happy in Jonestown.
Grandma Bates, how do you like it here?
I love it. I love it.
Got a good education and got a lot of friends who like it here a lot.
But a nervous family finally breaks its silence to Jackie Spear.
Now, do I both understand you to say that you both want to leave Jonestown on this date, November 18, 1978?
As the word spread, more and more people wanted to leave. Things got very tense very fast.
You bring those kids back here! Don't shoot those back here!
The reporters sniff a story. Don Harris hurries to interview People's Temple leader, Jim Jones.
Last night, someone came and passed me this note.
People play games, friend. They lie, they lie. What can I do about liars? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us.
Vernon Gosney, who passed the note to the reporter, is anxious.
Congressman Ryan told me I have the Congressional Shield of Protection over me, that I did not have anything to worry about.
Congress means nothing out here.
I told Congressman Ryan, you're in extreme danger. You need to leave immediately.
Mr. Jones.
Reverend.
Mr. Jones, after what we've discovered...
Congressman Ryan ignores the warning. Instead, he confronts Jim Jones about followers who want to leave.
You're not welcome here. Another night. What are you doing?
Uninjured, but unsettled, Congressman Ryan cut short his visit.
He's got bloodstains all over his shirt. He was shaken, but he was trying to brush it off. I thought it was really important for us to leave as swiftly as possible.
He and his entourage, along with 15 residents, prepare to leave Jonestown. Desperate to go, Vernon Gosney leaves behind his 4-year-old son, intending to return for him. At the last minute, another resident, Larry Layton, jumps on board.
I was very suspicious of him. Hours before, he had been espousing his total commitment to the People's Temple and to Jim Jones.
The group arrives at an airstrip 11 kilometers away from where 2 planes will fly them back to the U.S. They are unaware they've been followed.
I am identifying which people were going to go onto which planes.
Myself and Larry and a few others were going to go on the small plane. And that's when I hear the gunshots. They're killing everyone, they're killing everyone.
I tried diving behind one of the plane wheels.
And that's when Larry shoots me.
They had targeted people they were going to get. Don Harris was shot and killed. And then Congressman Ryan. I was lying on my side trying to play dead. And then they came and shot us at point blank range. was a bone jutting out of my arm. My leg was totally blown up.
I got hit on the left wrist and the left arm.
Larry Layton is overpowered. Vernon Gosney, shot in the stomach and leg, struggles to the safety of the jungle, where journalist Tim Reiterman and Jackie Spear have dragged themselves. While cameraman Bob Brown is filming this shocking footage, he too is shot dead. Five minutes after the first shot is fired, the killings are over. 5 people lie dead, including Congressman Ryan. He's been shot more than 20 times. 5:30 p.m. Jonestown.
Assemble in the pavilion.
Jim Jones has summoned the entire community to a meeting.
Terribly betrayed!
Among them is Odell Rhodes. He's one of only 2 living witnesses who sees what Jim Jones does next. This is his first television interview since the events of 33 years ago.
Families, children, I mean, everyone there in Jonestown was in the pavilion. I kind of knew that this was not a drill.
Bring the children.
We were getting ready to, to commit suicide.
Jim Jones orders the preparation of a mix of poison and a grape-flavored drink.
If we cannot
live in peace,
let's
then let's die in peace.
The saddest part is that they started with the children.
Children and babies are brought to the front.
The ones that couldn't defend themselves against anything, they started with the children.
Hurry, my children, hurry. No more pain.
I laid some of them down, and they just stopped. It was just, they just stopped. I don't know if they were in any pain.
This is not a self-destructive suicide. This is a revolutionary suicide. Die with a degree of dignity. Lay down your life with dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony.
A lot of people were in a trance. They couldn't believe what was happening.
Odell slips out of the pavilion.
I just walked away. I stood up and walked away, and no one stopped me. "909 people die in Jonestown.
including Jim Jones, who's found shot in the head. Nearly a third of the victims are children. John Hall is a professor of sociology who studied the People's Temple and Jim Jones in particular.
In the history of civilization, there have been rare events of collective suicide. If we're going to think about history, we need to think about what actually happens and why.
By rewinding the key moments leading up to these tragic events and examining the crucial pieces of evidence, Hall will uncover why so many died in the jungle and whether these deaths could have been prevented. In the summer of 1977, Jim Jones settles a self-sufficient community in the Guyanese jungle. He calls it Jonestown, after himself. Traveling from California, nearly 1,000 American men, women, and children, all People's Temple followers, emigrate to Jonestown in search of a new life.
Everything is so much different here than back in the States.
I've never been so totally happy or fulfilled in my life.
It's fun over here. It's really good.
None of this would have been possible had it not been for Jim Jones.
Never shall forget what he's done for me.
John Hall discovers that Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in the 1950s. It begins life as a small conventional church in Indianapolis. By the 1970s, it moves to San Francisco. Membership swells to the thousands.
Some people see a great deal of God in my body. They see Christ in me, a hope of glory.
Recordings of People's Temple church meetings reveal how Jones combines his religious message with a socialist doctrine. Leslie Wagner Wilson joins People's Temple, age 13.
He didn't teach religion. Our main focus was socialism. That's what was drilled into us.
I represent divine principle, divine socialism, total equality, a society where people own all things in common.
People's Temple became a countercultural communal movement that was opposed to what they believed was an inequitable distribution of wealth.
The tapes also reveal a charismatic and persuasive speaker.
No rich or poor, where there are no races, wherever there's people struggling for justice and righteousness, there I am!
Jones would depict Jonestown as their land of milk and honey, where a racially integrated group of people could live in happiness and not feel assaulted by the racism and class inequality that they felt within the United States.
This group that willingly leaves everything behind to come and live in the jungle of Guyana has a unifying interest in the commune succeeding and complete loyalty to its leader.
People identified with their own organization. They're thinking, we're trying to protect our investment in having moved thousands of miles from the United States, invested everything we had, and so they would side with Jim Jones.
Jones's socialist utopia is carved out of the heart of a dense rainforest.
The agricultural community was miles away from the smallest town, not really even very accessible from the outside world.
For Hall, this move is key to understanding the unfolding events.
He could pretty much run things the way he wanted to.
In reality, this jungle paradise is in virtual lockdown.
When we got there, we were asked for our passports. We didn't know that we were going to surrender our passports. I certainly didn't know. None of us knew what we were walking into.
Without passports, residents are unable to leave unless Jim Jones grants permission. He draws up his own list of punishable crimes.
Wanting to leave Jonestown?
Speaking negatively about father, Jim Jones.
Anything capitalistic in nature, any creature comforts.
Someone not producing in the fields, they were lazy.
Missing family, any questioning, anything that was going on in Jonestown. Anything at all.
If someone is overheard talking against the community rules, you should immediately bring that to my attention.
People were constantly monitoring you. If you had a secret within the organization, it put you in an extremely difficult position. You couldn't trust anybody.
Leslie Wagner Wilson lived in Jonestown for 16 months and is one of the few who managed to escape.
I could not even trust my own mother or my own sister or my own brother to tell them what I was truly feeling and experiencing.
I cannot believe.
From talking to a handful of people who, like Leslie, did manage to leave Jonestown, Hall discovers that families betray families because they live in fear of their leader. Jim Jones punishes anyone regarded as a dissident.
How dare you!
People could be put in situations that were traumatic.
We're your family!
There were cases of psychological terror in which somebody might be put in a pit and told that they were going to have snakes put in with them.
George, Beg! Ah, get her out of here!
There was fear of reprisal, and there was a mental conditioning and a programming that was very, very intense.
John Hall knows that the community is shrouded in fear, suspicion, and denial. Jim Jones's authority is unquestionable. His control is reinforced by the lack of external monitoring of the group. Hall uncovers that the Guyanese authorities are happy to leave him alone. Jonestown lies 65 kilometers from Guyana's hotly disputed border with Venezuela.
Guyanese decision makers had considered that the likelihood of a Venezuelan invasion of Guyana was a distinct possibility.
Beni Karan is Guyana's ambassador to the United States.
To station a large group of Americans on the border
Smile, your own candid camera.
would have been a very good move, a preventive move on Guyana's part in the event that Venezuela wanted to invade.
Venezuela will not risk a border incursion that puts American lives at risk. So the Guyanese are happy to let Jim Jones operate with virtual impunity.
The government of Guyana certainly did not do enough to protect persons who were there in the country, and they allowed Jones a great deal of latitude.
Jim Jones is running a state within a state. Jones further strengthens his control with the help of his female followers.
Trying to get me drunk, please.
There were what I call concubines. They would have relationships with officials to keep them satisfied to where there would be no questions about what was happening in Jonestown.
Local officials are persuaded to turn a blind eye. This enables Jones to import goods into Jonestown illegally. Weapons are smuggled into the commune. Jones claims they're to protect them from attacks by hostile forces. Tim Reiterman has followed the smuggling trail to the US, where he discovers Jim Jones uses his church for cover.
Bible in temple parlance was a euphemism for a gun. Among the weapons that were bought was the weapon that was used about a year later to kill Congressman Leo Ryan.
John Hall knows that Jim Jones is not monitored closely by the Guyanese authorities. But he's interested to discover how much the US government knows about what is happening inside People's Temple. Jackie Spears survived the shootings at the airstrip. She claims the Carter administration in Washington did not look closely enough at Jim Jones's activities.
The State Department was flat-footed. They should have been much more aggressive in evaluating the conditions under which these American citizens were living.
But John Hall knows that US authorities automatically take an interest in any radical political movement that is friendly with left-wing foreign regimes.
They knew about the border conflicts with Venezuela and the alliance of the People's Temple with the socialism of the Guyanese government.
But the People's Temple's official status as a church means that constitutionally, the government has limited powers to investigate.
This was a religious organization, and our country really provides a great deal of protection to religious organizations. That helped insulate the temple from some of the scrutiny that was probably deserved.
Because it had the label church, it got away with a lot of things it should never have gotten away with. It was a cult, pure and simple, it was a cult.
But despite the lack of monitoring, Jim Jones is convinced the US government is targeting him.
Jones became completely possessed. He believed there were a number of government agencies out to get him.
And this paranoia may have been fed by a cocktail of drugs he takes for an unidentified illness. Jones begins to see threats everywhere.
Hello? Hello?
The threats to us would vary. It would be from the Guyanese Liberation Army, the CIA, the FBI, the United States government not wanting us to build this socialist utopia.
We must keep them away.
John Hall discovers that, fueled by his own paranoia, Jones becomes increasingly obsessed with the loyalty of his followers. he regularly pushes them to their limits.
Jim Jones was always taking us to the edge and then moving the line. And then moving the line a little bit, and then a little bit more, to what was acceptable. Until in the end, there was a lot of things that weren't acceptable.
Alert! Alert!
White night! White night! White night!
White Nights are meetings called by Jim Jones during which he orders his followers to show their devotion by drinking poison.
A real test of how far you're willing to go.
The U.S. government is coming to get us!
At the heart of the ritual is his claim that the People's Temple is under attack from a hostile external force, and the only way to defeat it is by collective suicide.
Are you ready to lay down your lives?
If you try to screw around with us, we're going to commit revolutionary suicide.
He said, "Are you ready to die for revolutionary suicide?" And I said, "Yes, Father, of course," hoping that I wouldn't have to drink it.
You. Come and drink. Drink! Drink. All of it.
Unbelievably, many do.
My child. Bless you.
People did it. They didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice.
But the drink is never real poison, and the promised attacks never come. With each test, Jones reinforces his hypnotic hold over his followers.
Come.
John Hall believes they're willing to drink what they think is poison because they accept the doomsday scenario he continually predicts.
An apocalyptic ideology in a religious group will motivate people to do things beyond their normal lives.
You'll be all right.
Jones, in these horrid, horrid events, basically got people used to the idea of participating in a struggle in which the final outcome would be their own deaths.
But on November the 18th, 1978, while 5 victims lie dead on the airstrip, the poisonous mix of potassium cyanide is real. 909 men, women, and children will die.
I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about.
Hall believes this could only happen after a genuine intervention from hostile external forces.
Jones's personality, his psychological state, so forth, were not sufficient to precipitate the murders and mass suicide.
But when hostile forces form a powerful coalition, Jones's doomsday scenario arrives. In 1977, a U.S. magazine publishes a damaging expose of People's Temple.
Here was a radical leftist movement operating behind a facade. It had secrets.
The source of the article is a group called the Concerned Relatives. It's made up of defectors and relatives of members worried about their welfare.
From the Concerned Relatives' point of view, this organization should not exist. They claimed that Jonestown was being run as a prison camp.
For Jim Jones, the direct action of the Concerned Relatives poses a real threat.
Jones and his leadership were very concerned about the damage that such people could do to the organization. They were highly sensitive to the possibility that they would be undone by being outed.
And it's the media who Jim Jones sees as their mouthpiece.
Anybody in the news, in the media, he hated them with a venom. They were not to be trusted. They were all liars. They were the scum of the earth.
The concerned relatives turn to their congressman, Leo Ryan, for help. He enthusiastically takes up their cause and decides to visit Jonestown. Hall uncovers a personal motivation behind Ryan's alliance.
Yes, Jackie.
Ryan himself had family members who had been involved in religious movements.
Mr. Casares, yes, sir.
And he shared a kind of anti-cult outlook with the concerned relatives.
Yes, put him on, please.
He smelled a rat, and he was going to protect his constituents. He was the maverick. He wasn't going to do it the ordinary way. Whatever it was, he was going to do.
Congressman Ryan.
Days before leaving, the congressman ignores a direct warning from inside Jonestown.
Mr. Lane, are you threatening a United States congressman? I have to tell you, if I win...
His daughter overhears him having a row with one of Jim Jones's inner circle.
No, I will not accept that from you.
It was a heated exchange, and my father said, "Are you threatening me?" And he said that he couldn't be responsible for what happened to him if he came.
The confrontation does not deter him. In fact, it does just the opposite. Congressman Ryan leaves for Jonestown on November the 14th, 1978. But despite the threat and newspaper reports of violence, he takes no armed security.
Before he left, I said to my father, "Dad, don't let anybody shoot you or anything." And he gave me a hug and he said, "Oh, don't worry about me. You know me, I'll be fine."
Ryan arrives in Jonestown on November the 17th with congressional aides, the concerned relatives, and journalists. They represent the three groups that Jim Jones fears are out to destroy him. The visit throws a paranoid Jones into an intense state of panic.
He didn't know what was going to happen.
Is there no way we can stop them?
And he was not in control of Congressman Ryan or these people.
Their arrival sets off a chain of catastrophic events that will result in the deaths of hundreds of Jim Jones's followers. Having looked deep into the investigation, we can now reveal the series of events that allowed one man to bring about the deaths of a U.S. congressman and 913 American citizens. It's the largest known collective suicide in modern history. 24 hours to disaster. Congressman Ryan arrives in Jonestown with an entourage of journalists and concerned relatives. They are unarmed. 21 hours to disaster. Jim Jones lays on a welcome celebration. He orders his followers to put on an act to fool the congressman.
That was not real. But we did the party for him because that's what we did for visitors.
20 hours to disaster. Vernon Gosney secretly passes a note to reporter Don Harris asking for help leaving. 2 hours to disaster. Congressman Ryan is attacked by a rogue People's Temple loyalist while Jim Jones looks on impassively. Ryan decides to leave immediately. 15 minutes to disaster. A truck pulls up at the airstrip. In it is a People's Temple firing squad.
Jones must have ordered that. The sharpshooters simply would not do that on their own.
5 minutes to disaster. Tim Reiterman, Vernon Gosney, and Jackie Spear hide in the jungle until the gunmen leave. Congressman Ryan lies dead in the dirt. Meanwhile, Jim Jones sets in motion his revolutionary suicide, realizing the apocalypse he's been rehearsing for years.
We have been betrayed.
We've been so betrayed, so terribly betrayed.
He talked about the people who defected and how they had put us all in danger.
Jones claims that the congressman's murder will trigger a violent retaliation with the full force of the U.S. Army.
I've never lied to you. When they start parachuting out of the air, they'll shoot some of our innocent babies.
And he had a number of ways that we were going to be persecuted or killed.
The children are the first to be poisoned. Jim Jones knows that once they are dead, the parents will have little left to live for.
There were a lot of parents who decided to go because their children were gone. Other than that, they wouldn't have done it. I know they wouldn't.
We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide.
"909 people die in Jonestown. There will not be a greater loss of U.S. civilian life until the events of September 11, 2001. Today, the fight against dangerous cults continues, as Jackie Spear knows full well. She now serves as a congresswoman herself in San Francisco, just like her former boss, Leo Ryan.
I feel a very strong responsibility to have the same values he had in pursuing justice and questioning the status quo.
There is no way of knowing if, without Ryan's intervention, the carnage could have been avoided.
My father was the catalyst to the tragedy, but I do think that it would have happened one way or another.
No one can know for sure exactly how many were murdered and how many died willingly.
There were people who were murdered, and certainly children could not have made any kind of decision about their own death. On the other hand, it's just as clear that there were many, many people who acted in solidarity with Jones in a perverse scenario and took their own lives.
Vernon Gosney, wounded at the airstrip, never got the chance to return and rescue his son.
I remember my son as a 4-year-old who never made 5 years old, who had absolutely no choice in his life about where he lived or ultimately how he died.
Leslie Wagner Wilson lost 6 close family members, including her husband and her mother.
It's horrific to think what your family's feeling as that's happening, because I think when I look at my mom that it's the greatest mistake that she ever made.